Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast Little Seeds of Knowledge, the podcast which dives into topics relating to science, technology, business, or social issues with each episode. We hope that you are able to plant your own little seed of knowledge and watch it grow as you further explore each topic explained in each episode. I'm your host, Riddhi, and I'm so grateful that you were able to tune in for this week's episode. I hope you enjoy it.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to our podcast, Little Seeds of Knowledge. It is me, Riddhi, and I'm so excited that you were able to join us for another week of episodes. I hope you're all doing well, and thank you for taking out your time to listen to this podcast and supporting it. It means a lot to me, and I really hope you've been enjoying all of our episodes, and I hope you enjoy listening to this podcast. Our 1-year anniversary is coming up, and so I'm super excited about that, as well as I have a bunch of episodes planned for the next couple of months, so I hope you're really excited to hear the new episodes. And yeah, thank you for being here. And in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about something really fun. I'm going to be talking about the entertainment industry, specifically in relation to myself, because I'm going to be discussing some of my favorite movies. So I'm going to be talking about movies from animation to a couple of live action, as well as one Bollywood movie. For those of you who do not know, I am Indian, so I watch a lot of Bollywood or Hindi movies.
I do watch Bollywood movies, so I thought I would include one in here because I just have to give a shout out to because I just had to include an aspect of my culture, which is Bollywood movies. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. But as always, before we get into the episode, we need to first discuss the word of the week, the song of the week, as well as the seed of the week. So the word of this week for me personally was exhaustion. Why did I pick exhaustion? Well, I felt kind of exhausted this week because I had a lot of work to do that was necessary, and work that I wanted to do, whether that be content creation or, learning new skills. But I was just internally exhausted because I had to work on finding a balance between doing the things I wanted, but also not completely exhausting myself, that when it comes around to next week, I just wouldn't be doing anything, because I'm someone that likes working and I'm someone that likes keeping myself busy, but sometimes I overdo it and then I get exhausted, and so I have to be able to find a balance between doing things that I really enjoy and that I want to learn and that I want to continue doing, but as well as essentially not burning out. And this is a recurring, I feel like, theme or a topic that I've discussed in my episodes, the idea of a work-life balance, and it's just something that I'm still working on right now. It's something that I'll always continue to work on. I'll never perfect it. But exhaustion pretty much describes my week, although there were a lot of high points, even if I was feeling a little bit exhausted. For example, in order to overcome, I started reading again. I'm reading Susan Collins' new book, which is a prequel to The Hunger Games. It's called The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, I'm pretty sure. So it's an amazing book. It's basically the prequel to The Hunger Games, and if you have time, I would definitely check out that you go and read it. As well as my family and I went hiking this weekend, so that was a lot of fun. Of course, we followed social distancing, we were wearing our masks, we kept ourselves safe, but it was nice to finally get out of the house for just a couple of hours and just enjoy the beauty that nature provides us, as well as there were announcements that some of my favorite shows were coming back on Netflix. So for example, Sugar Rush, which is a baking show that I absolutely love watching, they are releasing their season 3, I think on July 30th, as well as there's another show which is called Legend of Korra, which is a sequel show to Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is a show that I recently watched and I absolutely fell in love with. Its sequel show is coming to Netflix as well on August 14th. So I just have, a lot of exciting news, as well as Taylor Swift dropped her new album, Folklore. There was the One Direction reunion. So a lot of high points to my week. But overall, in the midst, while I did feel exhausted, which is why I chose to describe it as my word. But I wanted to also highlight that while my week wasn't the most ideal week, I still did have a lot of high points. Next, the song of my week is Story of My Life by One Direction. I just had to give an ode to One Direction. Like I said, it was their 10-year anniversary. The band has been there for 10 years. Liam, Harry, Niall, Louise, and Zane. The whole band. I grew up with the band from middle school. I've been listening to their music. I was really sad and heartbroken when they broke up, but I'm still happy that the fandom for One Direction is going strong. I would not say that I'm a hardcore stan, but I do enjoy their music, and their music does make me feel very nostalgic, so I was very excited for the anniversary, and the whole time I was just playing their music the whole day, and definitely one of my favorite songs that they've ever released was Story of My Life. I just feel like it's a really simple yet beautiful song about, kind of telling about the story of one's life. And yeah, that's why I chose my favorite song from One Direction, which is Story of My Life, as to describe the song of my week. The seed of my week that I hope to plant and watch grow is content creation. I feel like this is kind of broad, but since July, I've been very interested in creating content, whether that be launching my blog, which I talked about in my previous episode, whether that be restarting my YouTube channel and planning on releasing videos almost every week, or whether that be reviving this podcast, releasing episodes weekly rather than leaving for a really long time. But yeah, I've just been interested in creating content and seeing what that means for me and my flow, and what I like, what I don't like as much, and kind of just seeing where I vibe with creating content. So I've been really enjoying that, and I definitely think that is something that I'm starting to learn now, and I'm super excited to see where it goes, which is why it is the seed of my week. Now that we've wrapped up our little intro, let us get into the actual episode where I talk about some of my favorite movies. I'm sure some of you guys enjoy these movies, and some of them you may not have heard of, and some of them you don't like, and that is totally fine. We are open to our own opinion. The entertainment industry and the movies and all the different types of movies that are there are so vast, and I feel like each of us has our own taste, but I just wanted to show you a little bit of a taste for some of my favorite movies. So, the first movie we're going to get into is a Disney classic that I'm sure everyone has heard of, whether or not you've watched it, and if you have not, well, this is your first time hearing about it. That is Lion King. Lion King is a childhood movie of mine. I think I first watched it when I was 4 years old, and it's one of my favorite Disney classic movies. I recently saw a video that kind of compared Lion King to being a Hamlet, and I never thought of that because I never read Hamlet until this year. For one of my classes, for my English class this year, we actually had to read Hamlet, so I kind of got to know the backstory of Hamlet. And when I saw that video, I was like, that makes so much sense. Lion King is pretty much a childhood version of a child-friendly version of Hamlet. And it was just kind of amazing to see what writers could do with taking such a strong old play and putting that into a kids movie, and I thought that was a really unique comparison. Some of my favorite characters from Lion King include Timon, which is the meerkat, Pumbaa, which is the warthog, as well as Nala, which is a lioness. Honestly, the story of Simba, how he lost his father, how he had to fight his uncle for the throne, and just everything. It was an emotional, yet I would say it was a very amusing story about family, identity, love. The whole animation in the movie and the characters are just entertaining, and just Lion King itself is a movie that I'll always remember, and I will definitely go back and watch, especially now that there's Disney Plus. It's become so much easier to watch old movies. It's definitely a movie that I will continue to watch in the future. Just everything about it. It's obviously not a perfect movie. I don't think any form of media is perfect, but it's definitely a movie that I have always enjoyed and I will enjoy. When I first watched it and I was super young, my dad actually we used to narrate the whole story from start to finish in the night for me. So in the morning, I would watch the movie, and then in the night before I go to bed, my dad would tell me the whole story of Lion King from start to finish. He would even mimic and say some of the quotes as exactly how they're said in the movie. So I have a very kind of emotional connection to the movie itself, as well as I did enjoy the movie, and so it's definitely one I would recommend, for young people to watch, but it definitely also is on the nostalgic side for me, as it is something that I have grown up with. After Lion King is Endgame, which I feel like is a classical favorite movie of a lot of people, especially if you're a Marvel fan. There's just so much to like about it. Literally, almost everything is perfect. From some of the endings of the characters, such as Iron Man and Captain America and Black Widow. Obviously, the endings were very emotional, and it was just really sad to see some of our favorite characters in this franchise leave, characters who we've grown up watching for the past 10 years. Obviously, my heart was broken when I saw that they would leave and they would no more be acting in the Marvel movies, but I just feel like they had such a nice send-off. It was clean, it was emotional, it was precise. I just really enjoyed the send-off that they got, as well as another aspect was the plot line, the emotion behind it. This whole movie was just one emotional roller coaster from the beginning all the way to the end, the way the characters interacted. And I would just say, like, this movie defined an entire generation, especially I feel like people my age who grew up with Marvel ever since Iron Man came out in 2008. I remember I watched the first Avenger movie I watched was the one in actually 2012. The one where Loki was the villain and you had the Chitauri with his army. Like, the very first Avengers movie was the first one I watched. After I watched that movie, I absolutely fell in love with the whole universe itself, and I went and watched the Iron Man movies, the Captain America movies. I watched as well as the other Avenger movies that came out, such as Ultron. And ever since that, I've just been a huge fan of Marvel and the whole franchise. And so seeing it wrap up in Endgame was very emotional for me. I knew Endgame was coming out, I think 2 or 3 years before it actually came out. I'd read all about Endgame, what it's going to be about, some of the new characters that they were introducing. So I would definitely say that I have been a fan of Marvel and always will continue to be. And I can't wait to see what's in store for the future of the universe. But yeah, Endgame was just a movie that I really enjoyed. It showcased the end and the beginning of a new section in this universe. It showed togetherness, it showed family, it showed how important your loved ones are, how to cope with loss, and ended stories, like I said, of some of the greatest characters. Definitely one of my favorite scenes in the movie. I feel like it's okay to talk about it now because I feel like a lot of people have seen it by now, especially if you're a Marvel fan. Was when Captain America was down at his battle with Thanos, and then he hears Falcon or Sam on his speaker, and he hears him saying, "Hey, Cap," and then you see Doctor Strange, open up those, I guess you could say, transport fields, and you see all of the armies coming out from like literally every location we've been introduced to from the whole Marvel movie universe up until Endgame, and just all the characters assembling together, and then Captain America saying, "Avengers, assemble." Just those 2 words hit home so hard. I think when I was watching the movie in the theaters at that point, I just started crying because it was just so emotional to see all these characters we've been introduced to over the past 10 years finally come on this one large screen in this awesomely crafted battle. It was just really emotional. And so I feel like when I was watching Endgame, it was almost like wrapping up a chapter in my own life. For me, it was kind of like a send-off to something so great, but also the beginning of something that will continue to be great and even better. And so that's why I really enjoyed Endgame, and it's definitely one of the favorite movies and one that I'll actually always remember watching in the theater. The next one that I have is from a different franchise. So the last one's from the Marvel franchise. The next one is going to be from the Star Wars. I feel like personally, for me, I gravitate more towards Star Wars, but I have literally nothing against Marvel. Like, there's no part of Marvel that I actually hate. I just like Star Wars more, but I still love Marvel, if that makes sense. And hopefully it's okay for me to like both. I think both of them are amazing franchises in their own way. And Star Wars is something that I just recently started watching, I would say in winter break in December of 2019. That's when I first started watching Star Wars. I've always heard about Star Wars, and I just never really got into watching the movies until now. And so Star Wars, since it's broken up into essentially 3 different trilogies, I decided to pick 2 movies. which is the third and the sixth movie from the 9 total main movies that are there right now. So I really like the third movie because I feel like it showed the height and the weakness of the Jedi Order, which if you are a Star Wars fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It showed vulnerability, it showed how easily someone can be turned by using their weaknesses, like for example with Anakin and his relationships, and how easily relationships can be broken in terms of Padme and Obi-Wan Kenobi. It was also taken back, I think, hopefully, by the twist in the movie. I'm not going to say what it is because I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but just the twist at the end of the third movie really shook me and I just wasn't able to comprehend it. And obviously Order 66 also hit home and just made me feel so sad because I feel like the first two movies I've been watching, the Jedi Order, and then at the third one with Order 66, like I was just like blown away by how something so great, I'm quoting great right now, could just be gone in a matter of instance. I will say though that I only started liking Revenge of the Sith more after I watched the Clone Wars. And if you are a hardcore Star Wars fan, I feel like you know exactly what I'm talking about, and I feel like you know exactly why I'm saying this. A lot of people in the Star Wars franchise don't really like the first three movies. They think that it's not really true Star Wars, and you know, like, you can have your own opinions. I honestly have nothing to argue with you. You can have your own opinions. But also, this is like the weird thing about Star Wars is that even though there's 9 movies, the first 3 movies, the way it's built is that movie 4, 5, and 6 is actually the first 3 movies that were released. So you have the originals, which is movie 4, 5, and 6, which came out in the 1900s, which came out in the like late 1970s, I would say. Then you have the first trilogy, which is the prequels that came out, that explained the originals. So what happened was George Lucas crafted the originals, but in order to tell the originals backstory, he came up with the prequels, which came out in like very early 2000s, if that makes sense. So yeah, essentially the prequels are younger than the originals, but in terms of the timeline of the Star Wars universe, the prequels are actually obviously a lot older because they explain the backstory to the originals. Anyways, so that was kind of hard to explain, but I definitely had a lot more appreciation for Revenge of the Sith only after I watched Clone Wars, because I just feel like Clone Wars gave a lot more depth to the characters, as well as explained a lot of different part of the prequels a lot more. And that is something I can talk about in another podcast episode, is about Star Wars and my opinion on it. But yeah, another Star Wars movie I really liked was Return of the Jedi. It was hard to pick a movie from the original trilogy, I'm not gonna lie, from 4, 5, and 6, because they're all so good. But I liked number 6 because I just liked the conclusion with, you know, Darth Vader sacrificing himself, and it was just emotional because one of my favorite characters in Star Wars, which is Anakin Skywalker, his whole story is just a tragedy, and the way it ended just kind of broke my heart. But it also, I feel like it tied his whole story together really well, which is why I really like number 6, as well as Luke's development by the end from who he started out in movie 4, which was, what was movie 4? A New Hope, movie 4, A New Hope, to who he was by Return of the Jedi. His development was so awesome to see, to a full-on fledged Jedi Master, and obviously all of the whole final battle too, I feel like was really well crafted, and the cinematography was great. So I honestly really enjoyed watching that, along with all the other characters like R2-D2, C-3PO, Leia, Han, and Chewie. They all were amazing characters. They had really strong backstory. So yeah, you know, overall, I actually really enjoyed the 6th movie. I don't think there was a single part that I didn't like. But yeah, I definitely would say I enjoyed the 6th movie more than the 3rd movie. So yeah. Anyways, after Star Wars, is Three Idiots. This is the Hindi movie. I feel like even if it is a Hindi movie, I feel like a lot of people know about it outside of Bollywood. But anyways, it's a live action movie. It's basically about 3 college friends and their friendship journey, except it's told through flashbacks. So essentially, if I can explain it in the best way possible, like I said, there's 3 friends, 2 out of the 3 college friends, the way the movie is set is that 2 out of the 3 college friends are on the road to find the third friend because they lost touch with him. And essentially, they're on the road to find their old friend because they got a clue from this other dude from the college. And so the whole movie is crafted that the 2 friends are driving just throughout India in order to try to find their missing friend. And throughout their journey, they think back to certain moments and have flashbacks of 3, I guess you could call it musketeers experience in college, how much fun they had, some of the important events. And yeah, pretty much it's a very emotional yet a comedic story and pulls at your heartstring. It shows that education is not a race rather than a journey. The numbers don't matter, but the quality of education does. And it just shows the power of friendship and how important it is to have, really strong friends. And yeah, it was just a really good movie to watch, and I would definitely recommend you watching it. Even if you have never seen a Bollywood movie or not, I would definitely think it's one of the best Bollywood movies I've seen. The next movie I'm going to talk about is Catching Fire. So, Hunger Games is one of the, like I said at the beginning of the book, the podcast, I'm reading currently a Hunger Games book, and Hunger Games is one of the best series that I have read to this day. Catching Fire is both my favorite book and my favorite movie. I just feel like it has a lot of characterization in it. I feel like Catching Fire also does a good job of world building. It kind of shows us the other districts, what their parts are, and it really introduces you to people from the other districts, so it kind of fleshes out the districts a little bit more rather than them just being district like numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4. Obviously, except for District 12, we already know a lot about District 12, but I feel like it gives you a little bit more depth into other districts. And personally for me, I really enjoy shows and movies and books that do a lot of world building, and so I feel like Catching Fire does a good job of world building, because it introduces us to people from other districts. It shows how broken their society is, obviously. It has a lot of social commentary, I feel like, too, which you could relate to today's world. Whether you agree with that or not is totally up to you, but that's just the way I see it. I also think the games were more interesting with Catching Fire, with the clock and the tick-tock sound. As well as, again, and this relates to world building, it was nice to see the players of all ages and skill sets, because it was literally the best of the best, and they were versing each other in the games. So I just feel like the whole concept of the Hunger Games and Catching Fire really alluded more to me, because I feel like I got to learn more about the districts themselves, as well as I feel like you obviously got to see the best of the best. And again, that's why I really enjoyed Catching Fire. Again, the CGI effects in the second movie, I just really loved watching. I thought they were done really well. And I also feel like this was one of the movies that's really stuck to the book. And so it did a really good job of adapting the book and still crafting and telling the story really well, which is why I really enjoyed Catching Fire. The sixth movie I'm going to be talking about is Bird Box. This was a chilling horror movie, and definitely not for kids, but I found its story really interesting. I'm not one to watch horror movies. I honestly don't enjoy watching horror movies. I get really scared. I usually hate watching horror movies, but I just found the concept and the story of Bird Box really interesting. Just the idea of an invisible monster that if you saw, you would die. It was a good thriller. I think watching Bird Box really kept you in your seat. I also thought that the plot was, again, like the storyline and the plot was attractive. It was different. I've personally never seen a movie take a concept like that, like where there's this invisible monster and people die if you see it. I just personally enjoyed the storyline and the concept of that. I also kind of found it, I would say one of the more intriguing parts was the fact that the boy did not know his name and was given a name, and how much the older girl protected her brother. I thought that was shown really well as how much the mother struggled to keep her children safe, from staying in a dark house, touring a boat, to making camp, in the woods. I just feel like their whole journey with the mother and the 2 kids, it was just projected and shown really well, and it was just a thrilling movie to say the least. And Definitely, while Bird Box is a horror movie to watch and hard to comprehend, I would just feel like it's one of the more movies that I would go back and watch. The next one I'm going to talk about is Mean Girls. I feel like this is just a classic Hollywood movie that spawned off so many iconic lines, from the Burn Book to On Wednesdays We Wear Pink, and She Doesn't Even Go Here. And it obviously gives us the iconic character of Regina George, which pretty much is like everyone's basic high school villain. I think one of the things that Mean Girl did really well, and why a lot of people like it, is that it showed us the ups and the downs and the fantasy of high school. It's kind of a useless movie to watch, but it's very entertaining, and they've done that really well. Like, you know, when I watch Mean Girls, I don't really think about the plot line. I just feel like the story is really whack, and I, like, personally didn't find anything from the plot line interesting. But just the story, but the thing is, the movie and the characters are really entertaining to watch. I think that's why a lot of people, and I personally enjoy it, is because it's just such an entertaining movie. Like, they really hit the nail on the comedic side. It obviously shows us, you know, broken friendships and crushes. It doesn't sugarcoat the high school experiences. And it was a cult-based movie because, you know, with Regina George and her friends, but it had a lot of laughable moments. So I just feel like because of its comedy side and just like the way the characters were, and like they were super dramatic, I just feel like it was definitely one of my movies that I would watch just to get a good laugh out of. And yeah, that's why it's one of my favorites, is because of how much you can just laugh while watching the movie. The last movie I'm going to be talking about is Ratatouille. Did I pronounce it right? I don't think I did. Ratatouille? Is it Ratatouille or Ratatouille? I'm sorry if I pronounced it wrong. Wow. I thought I knew how to pronounce it, but that's okay. So anyways, Ratatouille is obviously another Disney classic animation movie. It was very comedic, and it showed the meaning of cooking and what it means to cook food. And obviously in the real life world, a rat cooking is something preposterous that people would, you know, just kind of get scared of. But the movie presented the concept in a very unique way. The deal between Ratatouille and the cook was very well thought out and interesting, to say the least. I think the movie just showed the true meaning of the food and how to make it, and what food means and what cuisine means. And yeah, it was just a really comedic movie to watch. I still see the movie from time to time, and it's just one of those classic movies. And yeah, Ratatouille, there was just something about it that was really intriguing. I can't quite put my finger on it, but overall, loved the movie. Plot was great. The idea for rat cooking, very interesting. But nonetheless, a movie that I would still go back and watch and not complain about watching the movie, because good movie for sure. Okay, so that is my top 8 movies. These are movies that I personally like. You might not like them, that is totally fine, but I just kind of wanted to share some things, I guess, some movies that I find, and hopefully you were able to relate to some of them. If you did, you can hit me up on Instagram at Little Seeds of Knowledge Podcast, and you can DM me your favorite movies. We can go back and forth and talk about them. And yeah, if you have any new movies for me, make sure to, again, you can go and DM me on Instagram about your favorite movies, your movie recommendations, or you can go and check out the post that I make and interact with me on there. Other than that, actually, not only do you can do this through my Instagram, but I'm actually planning on restarting my YouTube channel, so I will be uploading my podcast episodes there as well. So if you do want to go check that out, you can also write down your favorite comments there. Yes, for my 1-year anniversary, I will be restarting my YouTube channel, so if you're interested in that, you can go and check it out. I will leave the link to my YouTube channel in the show notes. Other than that, I hope you had a really great weekend. Thank you for listening to this podcast episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to rate, make sure to review, subscribe, and share this podcast with your friends if you enjoyed it. And I hope to see you next week for another one. Bye!